Good evening and welcome to our Monday, February 6th regular agenda. Moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that the February 6th, 2023 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 7:02 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. All right, we'll move into O Canada. All right, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest for this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll go to approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. There's a number of items that have been requested to be pulled from the consent agenda to the items for consideration, those being item 10C, the animal control year-end for 2022, 10H, the letter from Lancaster District Nonprofit Housing, as well as item 10K, the resolution regarding violence against women from Lanark Highlands.
Okay, great. So moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So now to get the approval of the agenda. Did anybody see any minutes that needed to be corrected? Everything was stated properly? Excellent. Sorry for my mic here, I don't know. Moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meetings, including any closed session minutes, be adopted as circulated. January 11th, 2023 special council meeting, January 16th, 2023 committee of the whole, January 16th, 2023 regular council meeting. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. All right, we'll get into our presentations and delegations. I believe Ms. Servage would like to introduce our presenter.
Yes, thank you. So Deborah is here from the Boys and Girls Club. She'll be presenting some statistics from the 2022 camp and then also the plans for the 2023 summer camp. We're happy to announce that we're able to have the camp here at Tartan Hall and expand the program a little bit because council meetings will be virtual, and then as well as using Paul Roseau Park again this summer. So I'll leave it to Deborah to do her presentation, and thank you for coming.
All right, and just before you start going, just press the button so we can talk through there. You'll see it light up. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm excited to share the findings from last summer, and we look forward to another summer this year and the upcoming March break. So in summer 2022, we ran 8 weeks of camp here at the Paul Roseau Community Park. Our cost was $165 per week with children ages 6 to 12. We ran from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. with an available of 30 spaces. I ran the duration of July 4th to August 26th. From there, we have a registration breakdown. So we had each week, we were full with wait lists. The majority of our wait lists spanned anywhere between 15 kids per wait list to 14, so we recognize that as an area in which we can improve, and we're hoping to kind of make some adjustments to that in the 2023 year. We were also lucky to have Jay's Care Foundation support our programs again this year. So 6 local youth attended summer camp for free through to this funding, and it also provided a lot of significant training for our staff, especially new members of our team. We also have a partnership through the Children's Aid Society where we were able to assist 7 youth to participate in summer camp with no cost to the family. I'm always proud of this slide. So we seek to hire local staff for the South Glengarry community. So last year, we were able to hire 6 out of the 7 staff directly from South Glengarry. So some of them are familiar faces that had been here the previous summer, and we're hoping to retain a majority of them for the upcoming summer. We were also very fortunate to have some great volunteers this year, which was in addition to the camp from the previous year. So we had a great partnership with Wendy Wirt and the Nor'Westers Loyalist Museum. They came our youth, I guess, came to them every second week to learn about gardening and the history. We also had OPP Lancaster come in, the fire department from Williamstown here, and we made a new connection with Veronica, who has a service dog in the community. So she was able to come in and teach the kids of what a service dog is and how to properly approach them and all that. So we're hoping to continue those partnerships again in 2023. So moving on to, we do survey all of our families once in July at the end of end of the month, and once in August. We don't see everybody respond to it, but we do get a good portion. So of our survey responses, we have asked them how many years their children had attended, with that varying at 53% being their first year. So we're hoping to see that number grow next year to being 2 years with us. We also had 33% coming 2 years, and 13% of our youth were 3 years. 3 years being the average. We did have some youth that came from Cornwall that used to previously, that reside in South Glengarry but would previously attend our Cornwall camps. So we did have some great feedback that they were happy to have a local option. 100% of our respondents said they would register again, as well as this is a statistic I found interesting on how many weeks the kids attended. Last year, they really did attend 1 or 2 weeks, but we did see an increase a little bit this year to the 3, 4, and 8 weeks as well. We also asked about our costs. We want to make sure we're remaining affordable for our families, and the survey respondents were 100% agreed that the cost was worth the program. We also asked our parents what was the most important when choosing summer camp, and the location was by far the highest, which was 31.6% of our respondents. We also like to know where they hear about our programs, and it was kind of varying again, but majority was through social media, so we appreciate the support there, as well as through families and friends. And of course, we have to ask the question if they would recommend our camp, and we got a 60% strongly agree with a 40% agree, so we'll take that as a win. And of course, we do ask our youth what they have to say. We did ask them if they would attend camp again. 33% maybe, 66% said yes. When I asked the kids, why maybe, a lot of them said, well, I don't know if my mom's going to sign me up again. So we'll see where that takes us next year. 100% made new friends, and over 80% felt happy to be in camp, with 13% feeling okay, and we did have a little 6.7% feeling not so great. So we are addressing that and looking deeper into what we could do better to make those kids enjoy their experience. Some parent feedback, we always like that, was shared. We had a parent say that their child B absolutely loved the camp. They were excited to come every day, and they want to come to camp every day instead of going to school. They mentioned our staff were amazing, and they would have to say the most engaged and fun group of leaders we've had yet. We could tell that they had a very good team approach and enjoyed what they were doing. They also loved the last day. We had a slip and slide, kind of a big summer bash, so that was a highlight for some of the youth. And the fourth quote here was that my boys absolutely loved the games and that were organized, and the field trips to the museums in Williamstown, as well as the arts and crafts. So we will take that as another win. And so moving on to looking ahead to 2023, we have been advertising our March break camp, which this year is the Color Me Crazy theme. Our cost has remained the same from summer camp, so it's $165 per week, but we have introduced 4 and 5-year-olds to the camp. So this is kind of like our pilot for the summer. We're excited to see how that goes. Hours will remain the same, and we currently have 30 spaces available. And as of 4 p.m. when I left today, there were only 6 spaces left. We are hoping to be able to increase that number a little bit, but it is dependent on our staffing ratios. And we're excited to be back in the Tartan Hall here to make it nice and easy for families. And my next slide is the same, sorry. I jumped ahead here. Yeah, so the last slide I have here is our hopes for Summer Camp 2023. Our cost at this time has not been determined. We are hopeful that March break is going to go well, and we will have 4 and 5-year-olds welcomed into summer camp as well. Our goal is to have 45 spaces, which is an increase of 15 spaces from last year. And we will be running again from July 4th to August 25th. And we're hoping to do a drop-off pickup location here at the Tartan Hall, but also making use of the Paul Rosa Park so we can separate the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds from the 7 to 12-year-olds so that the program is designed specifically for those age groups. We're hoping to continue to engage the community for staffing, but also for our guest speakers and volunteers. And yeah, that's, I think, all of mine. I hope I didn't speak too quickly. But that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. I believe Councillor Bougie probably has a few things to say.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Deborah, for the presentation. And it just seemed like yesterday we were working together at the Boys and Girls Club. So I do have some experience working there. It's a great organization, and it's great to see that they've expanded outside of Cornwall into South Glengarry, into other townships. And it's just going through the slides here, lots of happy faces, and it's great to see the partnerships between the Boys and Girls Club and then our local museum, fire services, and so on. So just great overall, and it's good to see that the need is there, obviously, and that the spaces are increasing. I guess my one question would be, is there anything we as a township can do to support you even further?
At this time, the township has been absolutely fantastic, and we as an organization truly appreciate the meetings going virtual. It helps keep the kids in one space and that routine going. Other than that, at this time, I can't think of anything. We're just happy to have this partnership being successful, and we look forward to what the future brings with it.
Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. Thanks so much for your presentation. And one thing I really, I'm very happy to see, and I do hope it's successful, about doing the pilot about going down to age 4 during March break. And I do hope, I'm assuming it will be successful, and I look forward to that, because I know when Boys and Girls Club first came to us, it's just, I know at that time, you weren't ready to go down to age 4 based on staffing and space and whatnot. And I know as someone myself my kids, we brought them up to Alexandria to do Boys and Girls because they were able to do down to age 4. So I know that it is something that a lot of families value, to be able to go down to that lower age, and in an area like ours where there's not a lot of childcare options. I think it's fantastic. So fingers crossed. So thank you very much for doing that, and it's definitely a very successful program. And I'm very happy to see that the township is supporting, the program through use of the space, both here in Paul Rosan Park. So I definitely support that continuing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah, no, and I must say, on behalf of Deputy Mayor Lang and I saw Will, his son, and my niece Claire. So that was nice to see that it's kind of local, and just see that your family, it always makes it a little better. But it's well received, and I believe that was brought. It's been 3 years you've been doing this?
Yes, this will be our 3rd year coming for summer camp.
Yeah, And I see that 8 weeks statistic, that's basically taking care of a child for summer, so thank you for doing that. Looks, obviously they wouldn't be there if they didn't enjoy it. But on behalf of council, we're glad to support this, and we're glad to continue it, and thank you for your efforts, and it's well appreciated in the community.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, so we will move now into action requests. So 7A, 2022 annual reports, water and wastewater. Mr. Sege?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, this evening I am bringing forward to council our annual reports. This is just the draft. This is just the draft for council to review and to bring any questions forward within the next 2 weeks. I am looking to bring back the annual reports for approval at our next council meeting on February 21st. So if there's any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And I'll also be available for questions at our next meeting.
Okay, so for at this moment, it's just a reminder to us then for 2 weeks to get back to you, or would you like feedback if there was any right now?
Yes, I can definitely take feedback now, but if questions on the report, it's on the draft reports itself, I think it'd be best if we hold off until the next meeting,
Okay,
unless there's a question that is needed this evening.
go ahead, Councillor Bougie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it just reading over the report here, one that really stuck out was the sodium levels in Redwood Estates. So I mean, that's the one that said it was over the limits. So I'm just wondering, I guess, and maybe you can't answer this right now, but I'm wondering, I guess, what we can do to improve that situation in the future.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, and to answer your question, Mr. Bougie, Councillor Bougie, so sodium is a source that's found in all well water systems. So we test for it every 5 years. At this present time, there's nothing we can do to decrease the sodium limit. It's just a naturally occurring element inside of our water systems. And I can definitely bring that forward again at the next meeting.
Okay, so if council has any questions, please get them to Mr. Sege for the next meeting, and we can discuss them then. So moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 15, 2023 be received, and that the council receive the 2022 reports for the Glen Walter, Lancaster, and Redwood Estates water treatment plants and the Glen Walter, Lancaster, and Green Valley sewage treatment plants for information purposes. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Moving on to 7B, 2023 capacity allocations, water and wastewater. I'll read the resolution first, coming into it this time. Moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 16, 2023 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry acknowledge the receipt of the 2023 allocation report, being a report which details available 2023 capacity for the allocation at Redwood Estates, Lancaster and Glen Walter water treatment plants, and the Lancaster, Green Valley, and Glen Walter sewage treatment plants. Mr. Sege?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. And yes, so this evening I am bringing forward the allocation for all of our water and wastewater treatment plants. As council is aware, we do this on an annual basis to determine our allocation. So my recommendation for Glen Walter would be that we do not allocate any water and or sewer because we have no sewer allocations. We're still in the negative coming into 2023. So hence why the allocations for the water. We do have allocations according to our numbers, but without having the allocations for the wastewater, we can't just give water away at this present time. For Lancaster and Redwood, we're looking at the similar numbers as last year. We have allocation to be given, and as well as Green Valley. There is a small mistake on the water side inside the table. So Lancaster shows 277 connections for the water. We actually have a little bit more at 358 allocations that can be given. I don't foresee us giving 277 away this year, so hopefully if we can keep the table as is. This is for council to approve, so I can give allocations away in the year 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Sagan. I believe Deputy Mayor has a question. Deputy Mayor Lang, and then we'll follow up by Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And thank you, Mr. Segi, for the report. And we were expecting this report, as we've been talking about this quite a bit. And I just want to highlight that this is, you know, a reason that we need to continue working on this file. We need to have the ability to be able to expand our Glen Walter area, which is, you know, one of the areas in this township where we really would like to see more dwellings. And I think we're making progress. We've been working on our environmental assessment. We're chatting with Cornwall. Hopefully we'll hear back a little more from them soon. So I'm just putting in a plug that thanks for doing it, and maybe a plug anybody from Cornwall that's listening. We'd like to hear back before long.
Through you, Mayor McDonald. Well, I'll make a plug that we have lots of capacity in Lancaster, so if folks want to come and build in Lancaster, they're more than welcome to, and we encourage them. And I guess the typos that are in the chart, can we just make a motion to amend the table so that it's corrected? Do you need a formal-
Certainly, yeah, you
Okay.
can put forward a motion, Councillor Jaworski.
To amend it, or do you want me to give you more detail? Just to make those connections, corrections, that it should be 358 available connections for Lancaster Water.
I'll just whip up a quick resolution if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor.
Please do, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so I guess to fill some airtime, in your opinion on this, do we have the interest that require, like, if we were able to get the capacity, like, anecdotally, we know that, yes, we have the interest. On your side, you're hearing that too from an administration standpoint?
Yes, there's definitely interest in growing. Every year, right, is a different year, but there's definitely been talk about wanting more allocations for even some of our own lots that we personally own down in the Glen Walter Court area.
Excellent. I believe that the former Mayor Warden was very steadfast that we do support the water system, and I think that requires some investment. And the previous council has taken those steps, and we will continue to take those steps too, if that's by ourselves or with Cornwall. We vow to get that done so we can continue to grow in the spot that's supposed to grow. Councilor Jaworski, was the wastewater that was to be corrected, or
No, it was Lancaster Water.
Lancaster water? Thank you.
Be as amended. I don't know if the actual numbers have to be in the resolution. I just wanted to make sure that it was corrected in the report that we're accepting.
Would it be acceptable then just to put as amended for the, it was the water portion, right?
Yes, Lancaster Water at 358.
Okay. All right, then I'll just put amended, and then we'll know what we're talking about. It's on record. So any further questions of Mr. Sege? Okay, I'll read the motion as amended. Moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Martin Lang. Be resolved that staff report 16/2023 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry acknowledge receipt of the 2023 allocation report, being a report which details available 2023 capacity for the allocation at Redwood Estates, Lancaster, as amended, and Glen Walter water treatment plants, and the Lancaster, Green Valley, and Glen Walter sewage treatment plants. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Action request 7C, award of desapressant tender. Ms. McDonald?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor McDonald, this is a pretty quick one. As council knows, the township uses liquid dust suppressant to control our dust on gravel roads. We were previously in a 3-year contract jointly with the other 5 townships in SDNG, and we've went out very early this year since we were expecting prices to rise. Not quite this much, unfortunately, but kind of in the ballpark. So we are seeking council's approval to award the dust suppressant tender to Pollard Products for their unit price cost of $510 per flake ton, which is a substantial increase of about $40,000 from 2022. Thank you.
Oh, Sorry, I didn't realize my mic was on. Sorry about that. I believe there's a question on both sides of the table here. So Deputy Mayor Lang and then Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you, Mr. McDonald, for the report. I had watched the opening on YouTube, and I was almost panicking because it didn't mention that it was for the 6 municipalities. And I just looked at the overall number and said, holy jumping, that's way too much. But it made me feel a lot better when I saw that it was for the 6. But it's still, and maybe just something for the public to realize, is it's like over a 20% increase from where we were last year. And that's kind of what we're up against here, is that the things that we're trying to do are going up by more than the cost of inflation. Like 20% just for the calcium on our roads is, anyway. But I'm in favor of accepting and moving forward.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. I just to piggyback on what Deputy Mayor Lang said, definitely the overall cost is up because the unit cost is up. But in terms of overall quantities, is it fair to say that the quantities that we're using are staying fairly comparable year over year?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. We have tendered out for 350 flake tons the last many, many years. And I thought in my head that I had note to council that this is a price that we carried, this $510 per unit, in our committee of the whole estimates last week.
Okay, thank you. Did any other members of council have a question or comment? All right, moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 17/2023 be received and that the council of the township of South Glengarry award the supply and application of liquid dust suppressant to Pollard Products Incorporated as per their submission of $510 per ton, and furthermore that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign all relevant documents. All those in favor? Any if opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll move to 7D, 2023, council per diem and mileage. Mr. Jane, and I'll read the resolution while he's walking up. Moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 18/2023 be received and that the Township of South Glengarry's per diem and council members policy, policy 9514, be amended as follows to provide the consistency and to align it with the council approved changes to the non-union wages increases policy. Sorry, I'm struggling to read right now. The per diem rates paid to members of council shall be adjusted annually based on 1% minimum and 3% maximum increase. The adjustment will be effective January 1st of each year and based on the consumer price index for the year immediately preceding the year of the increase. In the event of a negative CPI average, the per diem rates will remain unchanged for the ensuing year. Additionally, the amount will be rounded up or down to the nearest half dollar. Mr. Jane?
Good evening, Council. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The report that stands in front of you today is relatively straightforward, but I will give a little bit of a background. So the per diem rates that are given to Council traditionally have been based on the Consumer Price Index, rounded to the nearest half dollar. On the January 16th, 2023 meeting, Council did approve a policy change to the wage increases that are given to non-union staff to establish a minimum of 1% and a maximum of 3%, still CPI based, but with those parameters in place. As we know, that the Consumer Price Index has been extremely high in 2022, fluctuating between 6.5% and 7%. The September 2021 to September 2022 CPI was approximately 6.86%. So at this point, administration is recommending a change to the council per diem and mileage policy. The mileage rate will be 61 cents a kilometer, which is the CRA rate for 2022. However, we are recommending a change to the per diem policy to institute a min-max methodology, minimum of 1% and a maximum of 3% based on the CPI for the year immediately preceding the year of the increase. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to field them. Thank you.
Councillor Boucher, then Deputy Mayor Lang.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the report, and I just wanted to make a comment that I appreciate the rationale behind it. I thought it was a good rationale with the non-union wage increase and with CPI being as high as it is this year. I mean, I think it's good to have some flexibility there, the 1% to 3%. So if we need to, go lower 1 year, and then eventually over time it'll average out. So I like the rationale, and thank you for the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Councillor Bushy's kind of covered it, that I definitely wouldn't want to give ourselves more of a raise that we give our non-union staff, as simple as that, so.
Saw that Councillor Jaworski had her hand up earlier. Did you still want to say something? Perhaps echo that?
Through you, Mayor McDonald, Deputy Mayor Lang said exactly what I was thinking. Thank you.
Okay, if you could just slide up a touch on that slide right there, 193. I'm just wondering if 2023, just so I understand it, is it rounded to the $0.50 up or down? Because it might be 192.50, but if we're going to an even dollar, 193 works. But we don't have to change anything. I was just wondering if that, just for my understanding.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, the way that it's calculated is based on an actual numerical value, unrounded. However, once we get to the final result, then it becomes rounded. So the 187.08 is the unrounded figure for 2022. Adding 3% onto that gets us to 192.69, and then that gets rounded to, I apologize. That is a bit of a mistake there. It's 192.50 and not 193. I do apologize for that.
No need to apologize. I just wanted to make sure I read it properly, so that is good. I don't think there's any questions. That doesn't change the intent of this, and thank you for presenting it so clearly to us. It was very, very straightforward, and I think everybody agrees. What's good for you is what's good for us. We can't, 1 to 3 min-max is nice. So all those in favor as the motion is read? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll now move to the award for RFP 30-2021, supply of external audit services. Mr. Jane again.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. This one perhaps needs a little bit more of a background. So the township's contract with MNP, our existing auditors, actually expired following the submission of the 2021 FIRs and the adoption of the 2021 audited financial statements. The township issued RFP 30-2021, supply of external auditing services in 2021, which had a submission closing date of December 15th in 2021. As we are all aware, there were several changes to the General Manager of Finance and Treasurer position in 2022. However, the evaluation committee comprised of myself and the General Manager of Corporate Services and Clerk have now finished conducting a thorough review and analysis of the RFP submissions. When we initially reviewed the RFP submissions as well as the terms of reference, it was determined that the terms of reference really had to be amended and in fact expanded to include 4 major items. The first being external interim auditing services, the second being a landfill liability update, and that really is providing the township with the tools to be able to update the value of the liability annually. We know that there is the PS 3280 asset retirement obligations regulation that is in effect for fiscal year 2023. And there is going to be a long-form accounting exercise that needs to be conducted in order to be able to implement that regulation. And then lastly, there is the one-time risk assessment review to determine areas of accounting risk as well as areas of cash control risk. At this time, administration is recommending that a competitive procurement process for an external auditing services contract be foregone in favor of a non-competitive procurement process, sole sourcing as it's called. The township's procurement bylaw as well as the procurement chapter of the Canadian Free Trade Agreement provides avenues through which we can procure non-competitive services, namely the procurement chapter of the Canadian Free Trade Agreement does not apply to the procurement of financial services. The township has received a proposal from KPMG LLP that includes all of the services required under the expanded scope of requirements. It is administration's recommendation that the contract for external auditing services be awarded to KPMG LLP for the fiscal years of 2022 to 2024, with options to renew for fiscal years 2025 and 2026 individually. And lastly, administration is quite confident that KPMG would provide the township with a high level of service, ensure timely meeting of deliverables, and has a strong level of experience and expertise that is aligned with our goals and requirements. So if there's any questions at this time, I'd be happy to field. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thank you, Mr. James, for the report. And I want to say thank you for taking a few minutes to go over with me, because I had a lot of questions on it, and just wanted to make sure it was plain and I was sure of where we were coming from and where we were going here. So, and just make sure, I'm going to kind of run it by you, make sure that I'm on the right track. Again, so the price that they offered is very similar or in line, I guess, with what we've been paying in the past for the accounting part of it. And the extras that we were looking for are going to be an amount more, but not double the price anyway. I'll say, I suppose we don't know exactly because we don't know the number of hours. But I think, especially that landfill, I think that is so important to this township. We need to know, we keep talking that it's going to be a couple of $1 million to close the landfill. And I'm hearing through Mr. Jans that there's a neighboring municipality that is talking in the neighborhood of $30 million. So we need to know, is it a couple $1 million, or is ours $15 million, or whatever it's going to end up being? And I think we need to know that sooner or later. So I'm going to speak in favor of this, because if I'm reading this right, I think we need to get a handle on that.
Yes, and it's good to highlight the value-added service that they're providing there, because that capping of a landfill can be quite costly. You can look down the road, South Dundas has had to do it too, so they could get you a pretty accurate number. It comes out of nowhere and it's big. Anybody have any more comments or questions on that? Oh, sorry, Councillor Jaworski, thank you. Councillor McNell, to point that out.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. So yeah, generally I mean, our processes are to have a competitive process. And so, try to do that as best we can. But I'm comfortable with going with a non-competitive process in this case, particularly because of the time sensitivities, and that trying to reissue a new RFP with the expanded scope would delay us beyond, the time that we would need to get those audited financial statements in, or it would be very difficult to do so. So I think in this case, I'm comfortable moving ahead, and I mean, certainly KPMG has an excellent reputation in this field, and we understand from a cost perspective it is very competitive. So it will be interesting to have a new cold's eye review, I suppose. You could put it, of the process. So thank you.
Councillor McDonnell.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess I also had reservations looking at it, not going competitive bid, but at the same time, if we look at everything else in the industry and everything else across all industries, we are sure to look back, I'm sure, in 3 years and go, well, we saved on our last 2 years for sure, and we got a fair deal and the going rate at the time in 2023. So I think this is a smart move looking forward for this municipality. So thank you.
And I thank you also for following up on it. As you can see, Council, it's 2021, so this was to be done in 2022. So thanks for taking the effort, and also the effort you'll take to train your auditors, as they say. It will be a good experience for you. And I believe KPMG in and around Lanark County might have bought an accounting firm which focused solely on municipalities. So this is kind of that expansion of that office. So they've bought a lot of expertise, plus they have a lot of expertise at the KPMG level. So I think this will go well. So. Oh, today do you have something further?
Oh, just through you, Mr. Mayor, just a comment on the Lanark office. Our audit partner is actually going to be sitting out of Kingston, so it's Lori Huber who will be the audit engagement partner. Our audit manager will be Caitlin Cox, also sitting out of Kingston, and we will be provided support through Bruce Peaver and Mr. Bailey Church's team in Ottawa.
Great, thank you. So I guess I'll read the resolution and I'll call the vote. Moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that Staff Report 19-2023 be received, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry award the contract for external audit services to KPMG LLP for fiscal years 2022 through 2024, with options for one-year renewals for fiscal years 2025 and 2026, and that furthermore, that the Mayor and Clerk be authorized to sign all relevant documents. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. So we'll move on to bylaws. 8A to amend schedules for bylaw 105, 2021. I believe, Mr. Jane, you might be taking this over from Ms. McDonald, sorry.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. What you have in front of you is a minor change to our water and sewer rate bylaw. As you read through the previous wording and the new wording, there's 3 substantial changes that I'd like to highlight. So first and foremost, the first sentence there of the previous wording states that the water rates for the Glen Walter system and the Lancaster system shall be equal. That is an erroneous statement as the bylaw schedules are written. The Glen Walter system and the Lancaster system water and sewage rates are not equal to each other. However, the sewage rates are 75% of the water rates for each respective system. The second change that you will notice there is that the bylaw, as previously written, required council approval in an open session if the required rate adjustment is more than 5%. The amendment states that in all instances where the rate increases are above what is prescribed in this bylaw, it will require council approval in an open session. And just to clarify, the bylaw states that every year the water and sewer rates will increase by 3%. And the last substantive change is that the previous wordings required council notification of the proposed rate adjustment 28 days in advance of it taking effect, and that users shall be notified through an advertisement in a local newspaper and on each user's bill for the period preceding the rate adjustments. The new wording states, which, as I understand it, was actually the intention of the previously written statement, is that in instances where the rate increases are above what is prescribed in the bylaw, users shall be notified through an advertisement in a local newspaper and on each user's bill for the period preceding the rate adjustment. So as it's written, there's no functional change to the way that the rates are calculated, just some minor wording changes to better align with the realities of the two systems, as well as just to carry forward what the original intention of the wording was.
Thank you, Mr. Jane, and that those errors were mine, so I apologize that I didn't recognize the intent of the previous council while I was sitting in the seat. Is there any questions or comments of council on this one, other than, all right, well, I'll read the amendment, and thank you for correcting those to get them aligned with council intent. Moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 2023 be received and the bylaw 12/2023 being a bylaw to amend schedules A and B of bylaw 105, 2021 be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 6th day of February 2023. All those in favor? Any if opposed? Seeing none, carried. We will now move to bylaw 8B, stop up and close road allowances. Ms. McDonald will speak to it, and while she's up, I will read the motion. Moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 21/2023 be received and that bylaw 13/2023 being a bylaw to stop up and close the road allowance legally described as part 14 on 14R 1373 between lots 13 and 14, concession 2, front being pin 37131 0053, be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 6th day of February 2023. Ms. McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, this is a pretty straightforward request to stop up and close a section of an open road allowance located just to the east of Kenny Road 27 and south of Airport Road. There's a location key map in your agenda package. Not in the agenda package, or not written, is that we believe that this unopened road allowance was sold over 40 years ago. We've looked through with the help of Clerk Compo, we've looked through our files and weren't able to find anything, but we do have a transfer agreement from Austin Abrams to the current owner, John McDonald Archibald, that was dated October 1982. So the transfer from the township to some previous owners would have occurred prior to 1982. And we believe that likely happened. Anyhow, sorry. It was sold from someone who's not the township to the current owner 40 years ago. The township doesn't have any need for this unopened road allowance, and since we believe it has already been transferred, stopping it up and closing it allows the current owner to then sell their land to someone else. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions or comments of council on this one? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We'll move to bylaw 8C, Macdonell Culliver zoning bylaw amendment. Ms. Haley?
Good evening, Council. So the bylaw that's before you this evening pertains to a property that is owned by Mr. McDonnell, and they've recently gone through a Planning Act consent process whereby they severed an existing dwelling, and the retained land is now surplus and is going to remain as part of the farming operation. This property is described as part of Lot 13, Concession 2, south side of Raisin River, and it's located along County Road 27 and Leach Road. The purpose of this zoning amendment is to rezone the retained lands from the consent to prohibit residential construction. And we've gone through, as well as to reduce the minimum lot area from 20 hectares to 8.5 hectares. We've gone through the prescribed public process. We had a public meeting. There was no members in attendance at this public meetings, received no written notices of objection. And we're now at the point where we're bringing the bylaw before council, recommending it to be rezoned to prohibit the residential construction and to reduce the minimum lot area. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any questions of council? I think this has come up a few times. All right, I'll read the motion. Moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that staff report 22/2023 be received and that bylaw 14/2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 3809 to rezone the property legally described as part of Lot 13, Concessions 2, south side of Raisin River, in the geographic township of Charlottenburg, now in the township of South Glengarry, county of Glengarry, from agriculture, AG, to agriculture, exception 33, AG 33, to reduce the minimum lot area from 20 hectares to 8.5 hectares and to prohibit residential construction on the subject property, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 6th day of February 2023. The Council of the Township of South Glengarry confirms that no comments from the public were received on this application, therefore there was no effect on this decision. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We will now move to delegation of authority bylaw land use planning. Ms. Haley again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last council meeting, I spoke to this proposed bylaw in detail and believed I answered a few questions of council. I apologize that the bylaw wasn't on the agenda at the last meeting, so therefore we're bringing it back this evening for approval. I wasn't planning on going through my presentation again. However, if council does have any questions or need clarification in what's included in the bylaw or the attached schedule, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions amongst council? All right, moved by Stephanie Jaworski, seconded by Trevor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 23/2023 be received and that the bylaw 05/2023, being a bylaw to delegate authority for land use planning processes, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 6th day of February 2023. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Now we'll move to 8E, delegation of authority bylaw. Ms. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. On the heels of Ms. Haley's report that you just received, the bylaw that's before you this evening is a general delegation of authority bylaw. So the Corporate Services Department is presently undergoing a comprehensive review of our general bylaws and policies with the intent of ensuring that we have all policies and bylaws in place that are mandated by the province, as well as to update and go through and take a look at ones that, may have been passed, 10 years ago that require some updating. So this first bylaw that we're bringing forward to you through this review is a delegation of authority bylaw. And this is a policy that is mandated under the Municipal Act. We presently do not have a delegation of authority or a general delegation of authority bylaw. So typically, what you'll notice in the schedule of this bylaw is a lot of these powers have already been delegated through other bylaws, other policies, or are just provincially mandated for certain roles. So what this bylaw does is it pulls all of that together and it puts it all in one bylaw, so it's a quick reference for staff as well as council and the general public. So essentially, there isn't a whole lot in there that we are not already doing. This is just a practice to make sure we're compliant with the Municipal Act. Of course, any of the delegated authority that's in this bylaw is subject to the council-approved budget, so you're not delegating authority to staff to carry out actions that have not been approved by council through the budget process. So subject to any questions of council, I originally was going to bring this for a first and second reading and come back for a third. So you'll notice in the attached bylaw, the way I've worded it at the end, it looks like it's for a first and second and then a third. But as I got writing it and realized it's essentially a housekeeping item, I've got it before you in the resolution this evening for first, second, and third. So unless council has any major feedback, if we could pass it all this evening, that would, that's the way the resolution's been written.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Ms. Compo, for the report. I read the schedule, and it seemed as though most of those things we were, but just the way you worded it, now you said most. So is there anything in there, like I assumed, and by reading it, I didn't see anything that jumped out at me. Are we creating anything new? Is if we're not, then I agree with you, it's just a housekeeping item. But if there's something in there that we're saying, okay, we're now changing and giving our authority to somebody else, you know, same as the previous, you know, resolution we just passed, we had a discussion about it ahead of time. So I just want to verify that. I'm pretty sure I'm right, but.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So you're correct. In my wording, so really the only thing that, or things that have been maybe added in here that is not presently a delegated authority is for most of the general managers. You'll note the first item is to execute contracts and agreements that are authorized under the current procurement policy. So you'll notice when we're passing resolutions, often we'll authorize the mayor and clerk to sign on behalf of the organization. And so just for the purpose of, you know, moving a business along sometimes, if council has approved something through the budget and it's within a general manager's spending limit in the procurement policy, we've just added that general manager can sign off on that. So again, it's within what's already their prescribed limits and whatnot.
I'm good with that.
Okay, great. Any other questions of council? All right. Moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that staff report 24, 2023 be received and that bylaw 11, 2023 being a bylaw to delegate certain powers and duties to officers and employees of the Township of South Glengarry be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 6th day of February 2023. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Now I believe we'll move into items for consideration. South Glengarry Fire Services, Station 4, Station Chief Retirement. Mr. Robertson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's always with a bit of sadness that we say farewell to a member of the fire service, and particularly so when it's someone of the rank of station chief, especially with 24 years of service to our department. So Blake McDonnell has recently retired. He has been the station chief at the Lancaster Station. Throughout his career, Blake held every position within our ranks. Very committed, always the first to step forward to take on added duties and responsibilities or community events and such. The fire service is but one of the many community associations or organizations that Blake is an active part of. So he's not leaving the community, definitely. He's going to continue to volunteer with the community. He's just stepping aside from the fire service at this time. My recent conversations with him have shown he may not be leaving the fire service for long, hopefully. I say that hoping Blake is watching. But I'd like to commend Blake on his commitment and his drive over the last 24 years and what he's given to both the service and to our fire leadership team. So I'd like to thank him through council for that. So, and if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, might I speak to 9B at this time?
Of course, it follows naturally.
Yes, yes, it does. So, with the retirement of Blake McDonnell as station chief, I'm proud to announce that we have promoted Danielle Chalette to the position of station chief for the Lancaster station. Danielle, he first joined the, which in 1989 would have been the Lancaster Fire Department. So that's 34 years ago. He stepped away for a few years at one point in his career, but has been back and has also been a very committed and active member of our department. So Danielle has the skills and the capability to take on this role. He's eager to learn the items that are new challenges that come with the role, and we're happy to welcome him to the fire leadership team. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. I don't know how to applaud somebody that's not here, but I would like to, on behalf of council, just turn them off. We should clap because if he was here, we would. Are there any comments further? Yeah, Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. And there's not a lot to say that other than to echo what the chief has said. And I wish Blake the best, and it's been a pleasure working with him. And I know Daniel's going to be just perfect and carry on. And Lancaster Station will be in good hands. But just to add to what the chief said.
Excellent. Is there any event that they would wish us to entertain Fire Chief Robertson? If we could, we'd like to be there for them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we are considering how best to celebrate both Blake McDonnell's career and the promotion of Danielle Chalette. So I'll bring those forward to council as those are determined. Thank you.
Okay, and if they're both introverts, don't force us upon them either. Let them decide what they want. It's their day. 9C, discussion, special meetings, availability, and locations. So this is open to council. Or do you wish to? Yes, please, Ms. Campo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for allowing me to provide a little bit of context to this discussion before council provides some feedback. So as council is aware, typically in the fall, around November, we set our regular meeting schedule with our meetings being the first and third Monday of each month. However, throughout the year, there are special meetings that come up. We now have committee of the whole, budget meetings and whatnot. And with the turn of a new council, administration is trying to get a sense for what council's preference would be for when these meetings come up, you know, what days of the week and times work for the, I guess, the majority of council. You know, in the last term, we established early on that Fridays during the day tended to work for most of the composition of council at that time. However, we have had some changeover, and so we'd like to get some feedback from council as we've had a number of special meetings that we've been trying to schedule in recent time, and it's proven to be a little bit more challenging for administration in determining what council's availability is. The second part of the discussion where we'd like to get some feedback is in terms of the location of those special meetings that come up. So again, looking back to the previous term of council, at the beginning of the term, we had our council chambers on site in the municipal building. However, following the renovations, that space was, or during renovations, I suppose, that space was converted into office space. And so a decision was made to move our council chambers to where we are today, here in Tartan Hall. And in scheduling our regular meetings, it works out just fine because we can give Ms. Servage our schedule well in advance and we can block off these Mondays for our regular meetings. However, this is a very well-used space by the community. And so when we have meetings that come up a little more unexpectedly, we're finding that it's quite challenging to find availability to hold our meetings here in Tartan Hall. It's also an option to have those special meetings virtually, but again, there are certain meetings where, you know, you're going to want to be in person, face-to-face. You know, for example, when we have a budget meeting, those conversations typically are better facilitated in person. So with that said, it may not be the will of council to want to displace user groups in order to hold a meeting, but if we're not considering having certain meetings virtually, it sort of puts us in a bit of a tough spot administratively in terms of planning those meetings. So, you know, we've kind of been having these informal discussions. You know, the mayor and I have been trying to collaborate to find meeting dates that are going to work for the majority. However, we just felt it was probably about time to have a bit of a conversation in terms of, you know, what council's expectation or what your will is in terms of when you'd like to see these special meetings take place, and if this hall is not available, what you sort of would like to see happen in terms of the location.
All right, thank you. And this would be on my behalf as kind of the chair of the meetings. I do try to accommodate as many people. Like, it's preferable to have all 5, but I do recognize that sometimes we might set some meeting dates that will have only 4 of us or potentially even 3 at times, but it's not ideal. And yeah, I'll go to Councillor Bougie. You have some comments?
Through Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Campo, for that. In terms of my preferences, I mean, I'm Monday to Friday, so anything after 3:35 I could potentially attend. I mean, doing the committee of the whole meeting the other night, the county's building, I thought worked well, so I think maybe in the future that could be an option for us. I don't know if how the rest of council feels, but maybe even in the summer, instead of going virtually, we could meet at the county's building if that space is available, and I'd be open to that. But really, anything past 3:30 Monday to Friday, I'm available. If it's going to be an early meeting, like 2 o'clock maybe on a Friday, that could work. But other than that, I'd be taking time off work personally. So those are my thoughts, I guess.
All right. I know that Councillor Jaworski had arranged her schedule, I think, for last term of council, so you probably have some thoughts.
Yeah, so I did, I'm on a 4/5 work hours schedule where I work, so that I would be able to have a whole day set aside for council. And so I hadn't stopped that, so I still have my Fridays free for that. But certainly if that's not the will, if that's not a preference for this council, perhaps I'll go back to working full-time at my other job. But beyond that, what's most important to me is that it's either at the beginning of the week or at the end of the week for my role. My job, I travel quite a bit, and so if we want in-person meetings, it's very difficult for me to have in-person meetings in the middle of the week, as a rule. Obviously, sometimes it can be available. So yeah, so my preferences are beginning or the end of the week, and I'm totally fine with virtual. I have no issues with virtual meetings. The last thing I want to do is displace user groups in this space. I think we need to recognize, our residents are certainly for me first priority, so I want to ensure that we're not displacing them unless, I think the way we were using the hall so far is okay. And I thought the county's was fine. I had no issue with using the county building, but we also have lots of other buildings too that we could use if necessary. So yeah, I think that's sort of lays out my constraints.
We're moving to Councillor McDonnell. By early weeks and late, that's Monday and Friday, just to be clear, or is it just to?
Mondays and Fridays are the safest for sure.
Thank you. Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. When it comes to some of these, I guess, budget being the exemption, this is more a question to the clerk. Are we, per our bylaws right now, required to go live, I guess, or broadcast to YouTube? Or are we able to put out, say, it's a special meeting for whatever the purpose may be, so something outside of budget that we don't have to go that route if we don't want to?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The way our procedural bylaw is written presently, it states that we may live stream. Now, I mean, once you set a precedent, it's hard to go back. However, if you give sufficient notice, the bylaw certainly doesn't preclude. Oh my goodness, you know what I'm trying to say. So yes, we have gotten into the habit, thanks to virtual meetings and our help from our friends at County's IT, to be able to live stream. However, our bylaw is written in such a way that it's not a requirement.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? So live streaming, do we also have the ability to not record? Should we be forced, say, for example, go to the museum because they have an open hall? Like, say that was the spot.
So yeah, I guess that's where I was going with this. So if these meetings aren't, for example, budget, where we do have more uptake and more interest, and I could see people being very disappointed if we didn't live stream our budget. But if these are some of our other meetings where there may be less significance to a large group of people, we could then at that point put that meeting out as a notice that, okay, we are going to be not going live next Tuesday. It's a committee of the whole to discuss a bylaw. It's going to be coming back to council at a separate date. That there's still going to be, there are no decisions really being made. It's more a meeting for council to just discuss a potential thing coming up in the future. And to avoid displacing a group, we could do it in Martintown, Lancaster, somewhere else. And just because I think people don't realize we don't have each a cell phone in front of us. We do have a complex system here that we run with at the arena, and is, well, if we're frank, immobile from the arena. It's near, if we're going to be live streamed, we have to be here or the county's building.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So similar to live streaming, it's the same wording in the procurement bylaw for recording of meetings, and that it may be recorded. Again, and to sort of build on what you just stated, Councillor McDonnell, the technology that live streams these meetings and the setup, there's a whole lot that goes into it than just walking in and flipping a switch. And I have to commend my corporate services staff who put a lot of work into the setup here. So because this is not a permanent council chambers, we do have to set it up and take it down every time. Excuse me. So if we were to hold an in-person meeting at an alternate location, it is possible that we would not be able to live stream or record.
Perfect. No, but I guess just if I were to summarize my comments at this point, I have no problem avoiding in the case of, say, a committee of the whole where it will be subject to a council meeting. I think council meetings and budget should absolutely be recorded and streamed. Personally, I do not want to do Zoom meetings. I don't have as much time for them. We did them for 2 years. I hated them from day one. They're nice for once in a while, but even at that, I don't like the summer ones even going to Zoom. I'm not saying we displace our groups here. Maybe we try to work those four meetings in at the county building, but personally, I don't want to be doing any more Zoom than we have to. I would much prefer not, where we can, not have to go live and do it in person, because to me, at the end of the day, the open and transparency is a huge part of it, but so long as the public is allowed to attend and there's sufficient space, the important part is that this council be productive, and I think we're best productive whenever we're in person.
Fair point. And so to try and tie in some of the other comments, you're okay with the STNG County building? And then what would your availability best be throughout the week?
I'm often busy Monday nights for council meetings.
back to Councillor Jaworski, then to Deputy Mayor Lang.
Yeah, there's just something I forgot to say. Like I could also do Saturdays. I'm not, I didn't specify that, but I don't have an issue with doing meetings on Saturdays either.
Saturdays are also, I see a lot of head shakes, so like, I prefer Saturday morning, just because you can get them out of the way. But I don't know how staff would feel about that, just add a day to their week, but Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. To a couple of points, I'd like to continue live streaming where we can. I think we've got people set up where they enjoy that. They don't tune into every meeting, but there's quite a few people that call me and make comments, you know, sometimes 3-4 days later, that they were able to watch it, or, you know, maybe didn't watch it all that night, maybe watch some during their lunch hour the next day. I want to keep that, and I do agree that staff shouldn't have to move this equipment. It's not really feasible. So that kind of limits us to 2 locations for the most part that we have at this point. As far as availability, I mean, I'm likely the one that can set his schedule the easiest as of everyone else, so I'm willing to go along with what everybody else is you know, doing. I can always do my work the next day or before or after or whatever. I'm not, don't have a boss that tells me I have to be there. Although maybe my son is getting to that point where he might say, Dad, you're gone too often. The only thing with me is we try not to make the month of May and the month of October too busy. Those months I have some pretty strong commitments.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lang. To the clerk and then CO, then clerk.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you. So just to roll this back a couple of years, just a reminder to council that we were looking at what we were going to do, where we going to consider another town hall, or we're going to renovate something else, buy something. And we were able to use COVID funding from the province, and it was an issue of health and safety, accessibility, privacy, confidentiality. Those who have been to the previous office, I think everybody here has, note that you walked in and it wasn't necessarily, it certainly wasn't confidential. And during times where flu outbreak or a pandemic, it wasn't safe for staff or for the public. So the decision was to renovate the office, and we have received nothing but positives about that, including having an accessible washroom in there now for the public and for staff. We then we had live stream meetings, and they were all online. And then the pandemic was lifted, and we were allowed to have meetings, and we have no restrictions now. That being said, so we went, I met with the new CAO of the counties, Maureen Adams, talked about a few of the challenges we were having that we've discussed tonight, and she mentioned the county's building and a few dates. We didn't mention permanency on that anytime we've got an issue that we can use the county's building. So I think we need to rein that in a little bit. The other thing is, if you were to observe other meetings online with lower tiers, that we're a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of tech. So we maybe have some other options there with technology that staff needs to consider, and maybe bring that back where it's focused on council, but no one else. So that we're not having to move the cameras. But what we really need tonight is a decision about which way we're going, because right now we're all over the place and we're going back and forth, and we're having to, you know, never mind rearranging council schedules, which we're happy to work around, but then we have all the staff that, and depending on who it is, besides the general managers, that could be other staff that have to come in and do a report.
Okay, excellent. With that in mind, like my schedule is Monday through Thursday. Then my Fridays and Saturdays are available, and then anytime after 5, pretty much every day. I'll stop yeah. So looking at that for special meetings, because it's not so much our scheduled meetings that I understand, because we've already booked it. And in a typical year, our budget meetings would be simpler because they're already booked well in advance too. It was just with the election this year kind of pushed everything back. But we are having more committee of the whole meetings and special meetings, and we try to jam them in on Mondays, and I think that works for most people as much as we can. However, it looks like then, if it's Friday early afternoon, it seems to be, or Saturday morning, I don't know if that was, and then even the hall, if we can't do SDG, would that work for the facility here? Oh, yes, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I could perhaps summarize and make a suggestion. By the sounds of it, our first and third Monday of the month presently work for council, obviously with them being our regular council meetings. Would it make sense then, if we have a special meeting that's coming up or a committee of the whole, to attempt to schedule those on the off Mondays from our regular meetings? And for the time being, I'm not sure. I'd have to have a conversation with Mr. Bausch to see what, if there is a user group that is presently booked in here on Mondays, but maybe going forward, we could plan so that Tartan Hall is reserved on Mondays for council business. And if we get really stuck and the hall is not available on one of those Mondays, we could default to a virtual meeting if needed.
Or if it's the will of council, we can have that in-person meeting and videotape it, or we could have an in-person meeting and not videotape it if it's pressing, right? So those, I know those might not be the ideal things. We want to live stream them, but in a push, I mean, we were transparent before with no visuals. I will say that for the Mondays for the month of February and March, if we have any special meetings, I do have South Dundas meetings on those evenings, but I only have 2 more left, so like that's of no consequence for the term of council. So Monday did appear to be good too. It seemed like the start of the week, fairly flexible. You saved Mondays for council. You said Monday through Friday after 3:30. I can be here after 5, but my work's fairly flexible, so I can be here about 4 if we need to be, and especially if it's an off night. Okay, I think that seems to work for most people. Like it's perhaps the best. Councillor Jaworski?
What kind of notice are we thinking? Because, I mean, that's also part of the issue, is how much notice we get ahead of time that the meetings are coming. Because I wouldn't typically block all those Mondays, in anticipation. But if I have a sense of, if we're doing like a committee of the whole, how much notice there might be ahead of time, that'd be helpful.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would really be dependent on the meeting and the subject matter. So council will recall there's been times where something's come up and we've had to have a special meeting within 48 hours. And on the other hand, there's times where, there's the suggestion of we should have a committee of the whole meeting on X subject, and we have a little more flexibility in terms of giving a longer notice period. So it would, in my opinion, be very subject to the subject matter of the meeting, but we always strive to give as much notice as possible where possible.
And looking at the general and not like, it seems like that worked, it seems from what everybody said that the Monday better than Friday probably, but it's the best for the most amount of opportunities we have. Like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday certainly don't work for your travel schedule, and then before 3:30 doesn't work for Councillor Bougie, so it was either really Monday, Friday, or Saturday that will fit most circumstances. It won't fit all. I don't know if we'll ever get perfect consensus on this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. And I guess just to maybe build on Councillor Jaworski's question, when I made the comment that we could, leave Mondays open for council business, I meant that more so on an administrative side for us to, when we're planning, to keep in mind to try and have it on those off Mondays. I'm certainly not suggesting that council keep every Monday open. Just if something does pop up, we'll try to work with that type of schedule.
Okay, I'm not trying to be cheeky with this comment. Could you do 4/5 and have Monday as your day off? Or does that wouldn't work? I don't know, I'm just.
No, I mean, it's, I'm not saying it's not possible. It's, but other people who decide that who are not here, so.
Okay, it seems then that would probably be the best in most cases, and I think that's what we're going to get because you do have competing priorities. We also did want to talk about the budget meeting, the upcoming budget meeting on the 15th. I don't think it's going to work, and I was wondering if we could move that one to February 22nd. So the following Wednesday. I guess if you take your schedules out, apologize for taking out a phone at council, but I'm just look at our schedules.
Where would it be,
Question, the
please?
same time of day?
Administration recommending the same time on the 22nd? Defer to the CO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. A bit later.
Where?
Doesn't matter.
What does matter?
I would have to speak with Ms. Servage, and she possibly has an answer for me.
Or we can confirm through the counties.
Just my concern about Wednesday is just there's 85 dancers here on Wednesdays, and then those 85 dancers displace 85 more dancers in Martintown, so we have 160 kids that are being displaced and all their families.
Ms. Servage has a comment there too.
I'll just make a quick comment. The facility here at Tartan Hall is rented Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings. Prior to council moving to Tartan Hall, there were Monday evening rentals as well. So we have readjusted their schedule, and this other rental now uses different Mondays different Mondays to accommodate council. But any other time that there's a council meeting, whether it be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, or sometimes on a Friday, it's displacing a rental. So if we wanted to have this next one on the Wednesday, it would be displacing, you are right, the dance class. But any other time, like say there's a long weekend and we have council on a Tuesday, we are then displacing that rental as well. So having council here at this facility, that's just the reality of it. And I guess it's up to council if we want to move, well, like you guys had just discussed, whether it's at the counties or it's virtual. But we do have a lot of rentals here, so that's our schedule and that's what happens, so.
Okay, then maybe it would be recommended to go to the counties for these meetings as they have a fairly quick lead time. So would the 22nd, a Wednesday at the counties work if it's possible? And then Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll just throw the comment out. The last council, our former council, made the decision to change buildings, and we have to acknowledge that we knew at some point we would have to inconvenience one user group once in a while. I don't want to inconvenience anybody, but we've got a popular building. We've got relatively very reasonable rates compared to our competitors and compared to our neighboring municipalities. We might have to accept we're going to have to inconvenience somebody for one, maybe 2, 3 budget meetings. So I don't want to inconvenience anybody either, but maybe we're talking, 2, 3 weeks notice, we can find another location and we can adjust it that way and move forward. But I think at this point, we're going to have to inconvenience somebody one night, whether it's the dancers or whether it's karate or you name it, our building's booked. And we can't start inconveniencing people that are booking for a single event. So those are generally our Fridays. I'm just facing reality at this point.
Deputy Mayor Lang?
Sorry, my mic was on, so hopefully it didn't cut anybody else's off. My thought on it was that we're giving up the 15th, which we had displaced people, and it was, so it's going to be the same thing. We let them come back on the 15th, they're going to be displaced. It's still only the one time. I think budget's a pretty important thing, and I think it's very important that we meet face to face, and we have that time to get that sorted out. It's only once a year. So I'm okay with it being here. And then I understand what Mr. Mills had said. We don't want to take advantage of the county's hospitality, and for us to meet there, they also have to have staff present to run the cameras and so forth. So we're looking at getting staff to come in when they wouldn't normally be there to run that for us. So I would be okay if we give the building back on the 15th and we took it on a different night.
Okay, that seems to be a good direction for now. The March 8th meeting, also we were looking at potentially moving that March 8th budget meeting sometime to the week of March 20th. What are available there? We do have Monday night, there is county council, or it's Monday morning is county council, Monday evening is South Glengarry Council, and then aside for that, my week is quite open. The week of the March 19th to the 25th. Counselor Bougie, you're looking like you're saying most
Well,
evenings work for you that?
Yeah, any evening works for me
Okay.
for that week. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Lang also signals that, so we're looking to accommodate. Counselor McDonnell, so looking at you, Counselor Jaworski, is there a best evening for you that week? And then we can just, that's far enough that we can probably leave it to administration to figure out which building is best, and perhaps even using the county's that time to not inconvenience them a second time. Counselor McDonnell?
Just to be clear, I think it's the week before is March break, correct? Okay. I have a previous engagement that week, not in my calendar.
The week of the 20th?
No, the week prior.
Okay.
I'm fine for the 19th to the 25th or.
Okay, great. Counselor Jaworski?
I am free that week, but I guess I'd just like to add, I don't think there's anything wrong with us taking advantage of the county's resources. Our residents pay a lot of money also towards that building, so I don't see that there's anything wrong with us asking to use it. And I also, what CAO Mills mentioned about, if there's another option where we can be a little less technologically advanced, and that we probably do have the nicest live streaming of all the councils, perhaps there's a lower tech version that could be more portable, that we could do in one of our multiple locations that are not used very much, like our Glen Walter Fire Hall, for example, which has a beautiful space and is generally empty. Thanks.
No, that is a fair point. It keeps it within South Glengarry, which I know some people might find some value there. So the March 20th meeting, we'll leave that to administration to come back. It might be SDNG, it might be here. February 22nd will be here based on, there's two councillors, and I would agree with that if we're just swapping, it's okay. So the will of council there. Councillor Jaworski says no to that. So just for the record. But the rest of us, it seems there's a will to do it. Did you have a comment? CO, and then we'll go to Councillor McDonnell.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have other buildings that they aren't as teched up like these. North Lancaster, I'm assuming, is not booked those Wednesdays. Feel free.
No, that is fair, and I have a GoPro, so it picks up the barnyard badminton quite well, so, and it gets your voice, so we can go low tech and we can work it, but these dates do work. We kind of discussed as an aggregate, or a will of council will be February 22nd here, March 20th. Please come back with some answers, or pick a location, I guess. We'll make it work from council's perspective. CO Mills?
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, we've confirmed those two budget dates. Okay, I will speak to the counties tomorrow to confirm the location and that it's okay because those are different dates than we had discussed.
All right, I do thank administration as well as legislative bodies for having this discussion. Again, targeting Mondays seem to be the, for the new ones. We have our dates for our budget, and then next year, we'll just have our dates already lined up, so it won't be an issue. We'll have it booked before anybody else can come along. So moving to the consent agenda, bringing out items 10C, Animal Control Year End 2022. Ms. Brunet?
I pulled it, so I should do,
Sorry?
can I speak to it? Because
Oh, yes, you brought it forward? Please,
Yes.
Please do, Councillor Jaworski.
unless Ms. Brunet, you wanted to start. I asked to pull this forward because I know that animal control is a very valued service by members of the community, particularly when it comes to dogs at large. I know that probably our most popular, or the most popular Facebook posts and whatnot, like the social media posts in our area seem to deal with loose dogs, finding loose dogs. And I wanted to put it to Ms. Brunet, when it comes to dogs that do end up eventually picked up by Mr. Castleman and brought to his pound, if there was a way perhaps to engage, like heighten use of social media, because it seems that once they go into Mr. Castleman's care at the pound, that they're sort of, there's not closing of the loop, let's say, in terms of dogs that are picked up that potentially would be put up for adoption. We don't see those again out here in South Glengarry. So I was gonna, maybe if there's a way of knowing where, if there is a place on Facebook where they are being posted, or if that's something that we could propose to Mr. Castleman, because I do know I get questions too from members of the community about, you know, what happened to X dog that he came to pick up. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for pulling the report. So Kevin Castleman works under a provincial legislation that's called the Animals for Research Act. And this legislation, it guides him in what he's allowed to do with the animals and how long they stay and everything around that. Council also passed a bylaw earlier this year, which dictates the length of time they can stay and what our services are to the public. So when Kevin Castleman is called for a animal at large or by the OPP for an injured animal, or dog specifically is our services, he will go and attend the property. If the dog is still there or contained, he will take the dog. If he is aware of where it belongs or the person holding the dog knows where it belongs, he does return it to that household. However, if that's not the case, he brings the dog back to the pound and they are held for a minimum of 7 days based on his practice. For the municipality, he charges us 4.5 days. His legislation states 3 days, excluding the day that the dog is taken. We don't receive any photos or contact from him from when he obtains a dog. He gets it, he is one-man show. He's the only person that operates this pound. He has 2 other volunteers, but they're there strictly for feeding the animals and housing them for in between adoption, in between catching and adoption. So in speaking with Mr. Castleman, I did bring up the suggestion of obtaining photos once he obtains a dog and then sends it to myself or our communications official, and they would post it to our social media. He did indicate that that would be quite difficult for him, seeing as he's one person who operates for 6 different municipalities around us. He still said he'd be willing to try it, and I would definitely appreciate and hope that it would work. I just don't want to end up in a spot where he sends photos for certain dogs, but the other days he can't because he's too busy or he's on his way from us going to Castleman or other way around. And so some dogs will be posted, some don't. Accountability is definitely a major factor here, but also going back to he is only one person, it's quite difficult. He does have a Facebook page, which is operated by one of his volunteers who is retired, and it's called SD&G Animal Shelter, formerly called South Dundas Animal Shelter, because he also services South Dundas. On that page, they post approximately once a month when the dogs are ready for adoption. So the dogs aren't posted when they're obtained, they're only posted once they're ready to go out, if they're rehabilitated as well as healthy. I do agree that it would be phenomenal if we could post the photos up as soon as we catch them, seeing as Facebook is our main source of returning animals to their homes. But in this scenario, I don't know how realistic it would be with just him operating this kennel.
Thank you very much, Ms. Brunet, and maybe something, when the contract is up for, renewal, maybe it's something to bring formally, but if, I'd be happy even on a best efforts basis to see how it goes. That'd be great. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Bougie.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I think that would be a great idea. I mean, if you ever on our Facebook page, is probably one of the biggest shared items is a lost dog in South Glengarry. It's, people really rally around that and try to help. So if he is able to do anything, that would be a huge benefit. My question was in regards to the number of calls. I was a little taken back at 45 calls. I thought that was quite high, but apparently not, talking to you, Ms. Brunet. And how does that compare to previous years, the last couple of years, in terms of 45 calls with 24 dogs required boarding, 8 were adopted, 9 euthanized? Do we have the numbers from last year or the year before?
Through you again, Mr. Mayor, if we can pull up one of the charts that I had created just to develop further on that as well. So in previous years, we were around the 65 calls. So this year, or 2022, was less than normal. I shouldn't say normal, but over the last few years, it's always been in the 60 range. And with that being said, the pound once again operates through the Animals for Research Act, and they have a chart that they have to
fill out every time an animal is taken into their care, and this has 5 sections. The first one being reason for the apprehension. The second is on arrival, what they're like. The third being disposition, so what we do with the animal. Fourth being the identification, if there are any, and the last is how long they stay with us. The majority, evidently, based on this chart, is the dog is at large. We had one that was released by an owner, which means that the owner gives up their dog and contacts our dog catcher. At large, in this scenario, is usually including trespassing, seen as he either is on someone else's property, the dog's on someone else's property, and the owners take the dog, or Kevin Castleman finds the dog and catches it. On arrival, the majority of them are healthy. The ones that are sick or injured is typically due to car accidents involving a dog, or a car accident with a dog being the occupant and gets at large but then injured, or has been at large for a long period of time and is sick with whatever disease. He also includes like during the winter when they have frostbite going all the way up their body and so on and so forth. Disposition, so he has to follow his legislation once again, which allows him to do multiple things. So donate the animal to research, redeem the dog, so that means the homeowner or the dog owner retrieves the dog himself or themselves. Sold is the same thing as adoption, and euthanized, he has 4 reasons that he's allowed to euthanize an animal. The one that is used for all of our apprehensions is that the animal is not rehabilitatable, if that's the word, whether because it's sick or injured and he cannot either have the funds or the animal just cannot get back from whatever the issue is. So in this scenario, the number is wrong on the staff report, which I noticed just earlier today for the adopted. It's actually 15 animals adopted and not 8. Euthanized is the correct number. It was 9 animals, and he did state that the majority of those were due to OPP calls following incidents that occurred, whether due to highway traffic incidents. And I'm not sure if there was any other question, Councillor Bougie, I'm sorry.
If I may just throw in a question, do you feel that given the service would the expectation of a resident be met by the contract we currently have with our dog catcher? Just to give some thoughts on that.
Through you. I do believe that currently the level of service and the cost that we pay Mr. Castleman is very well balanced. He is available 24/7, 365 days a year. You call the number. If he doesn't answer right away, he does answer within the next hour. It's never more than that, and if it is, then there must have been a medical incident or something of the sorts. He also is, so one of the only problems that I see with all of this, but this is with all animal catchers in Ontario I'm going to speak to, is if a dog is roaming at large and not actively contained, it is extremely difficult to obtain that dog. So he does attempt, whether it's with live traps or he has other means as well, but if the animal's not contained, he can't always be there 24/7 since he does serve 6 other municipalities. In addition to that, I do believe that it would be useful, as Councillor Jaworski stated, that when his contract is up for renewal, that it might be the will of council to consider whether increasing or doing something else to allow for the service of having a social media poster or something of the sorts in order for us to better use our services that are disposable to us, social media, to post the photos of dogs. Currently, we do post it on our website. It's in all of our community guides. It's on our social medias through posts that I create and the communications coordinator creates. And the ministry sees it, the ministry which legislates the Animals for Research Act, they see it as a responsible dog owner will reach out to the municipality. They will reach out to a dog catcher to obtain their dog, to find out where their dog is, if it's at large or if it's lost. Therefore, there's nothing legislated for us to post and do more of. So everything that we're doing currently is already above what we're expected to do, but there's always room for improvement.
All right, thank you. So when that contract comes, I am interested in your thoughts to directions we could go, because it's always fun at that time to explore our options, because microchipping is quite prevalent nowadays, and you might have some ideas towards that. So I look forward to a future report. Or go ahead, yes.
If I could speak to the microchipping quickly, one of the items that the animals come in with that he has to check for is a collar, any markings, tattoos, including a microchip. And he has not once in the 3 years that I've been working full-time here had once an animal with a microchip. All the others, which he's legislated to carry a reader, has never had a microchip. So our new bylaw as of the beginning of 2023 does state that an animal needs to have an identification piece with their name and address or contact information, or in addition to a microchip. I definitely believe microchip is convenient and would be very useful in these situations.
All right, thank you for answering all our questions. Next up was 10H, letter Lancaster and District Nonprofit Housing. I believe Councillor Bougie as well as Councillor Jaworski wanted this one pulled. We'll start then with Councillor Bougie this time.
Well, the letter's pretty self-explanatory, but as we know, December 23rd was a major storm. Lancaster was without power for almost 24 hours, and the Lanshar Center here is requesting that it once again be reinstated as a warming center, as it was, in accordance with our age-friendly community action plan, which to me makes a lot of sense, being that the seniors are right there already. I know we have other facilities that act as emergency, I guess, warming stations. I believe the arena is one. I'm not sure about the fire hall. Maybe Ms. Haley will be able to answer that better. But I guess if it was at one point, maybe it's not up to par at this point, but it makes a lot of sense to me to look into this definitely as this being a warming center, especially that the seniors are right there in that vicinity, instead of having to move them, whether it's the arena or even to the fire hall in Lancaster, if that's even a site, being the mobility issues that they may have.
Okay, Ms. Haley with the emergency planning, if you have any thoughts on, or you can add to that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I am not aware of this site being a formal warming center or a previously documented site used for this purposes. In reading that letter, I believe there was reference made to it being used during the ice storm in 1998. I was part of the process where we became an age-friendly community. There was certainly recommendations, but again, I don't recall a specific time where we indicated that this facility would be formally used as a warming center. That being said, I had discussions with Ms. Servage before this council meeting once we saw the letter, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Mrs. Servage, but we do feel that this may warrant additional discussion with council due to the cost to prepare this center to be able to purchase a generator, have that generator available. We'd also be looking at staffing costs, etc. So I think this is to become a bigger discussion someday, whether that's through our budget process or future budget processes, for council to consider these costs and provide direction to staff accordingly.
Councillor Jaworski, if you had thoughts or a different comment?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor McDonald. No, I was interested by the letter because definitely when there was the incident, there were a lot of folks who were in not a great situation. And I know that in the end, we did open up the fire hall for a period of time. But my interest in this is, regardless of what site it is, I think we should take a look at ensuring that we do have a warming center, and so that's ready to go and that has hours that would be suitable for the community. I don't know if the fire hall is the right location or if it should be the Lanshar building, but I would support taking a look at this, so that, because it does seem we have extreme weather events fairly frequently that cause our power to go out in this area. So I think we should have something that is there to respond to the needs of the residents.
Okay, then I guess next time we have our emergency planning, you'll probably go through that list anyway, maybe just highlight it, Ms. Haley, whenever we go through that process, or is that something that become like a future information report perhaps?
Mr. Mayor, I would see this to be more of an information report through council as opposed to through our municipal emergency control group, for reasons of of logistics, of costs, et cetera. One thing to keep in mind during emergencies, we are not always in a position where we can open a facility. And for an example, there could be situations where we might have a power outage and we might have an extreme weather event. We may also have messaging from our OPP saying stay off the roads. And if those messages are happening, then we're not going to disrespect those messages and open up spaces and encourage our residents to, drive on the roads and things like that. I'm not saying we can't be prepared and not have spaces as backups, but I just want it to be clear that we would be making decisions based on the event that's before us or the extreme weather event that's before us to ensure that everyone is safe. One thing we're taught through emergency preparedness, and whether this is right or wrong or the public would agree or disagree, is that we are supposed to be responsible for ourselves for the first 72 hours. I realize in some circumstances that could be very difficult given different age groups, maybe access to limited groceries, access to different facilities. You're not able to get out on a regular basis to have enough supplies in your house, etc. But those are things we can certainly discuss to see what our community really needs and how we can better serve our community. And that can be done through an emergency preparedness broader discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments on that? Nope. Okay, great. We'll move to Resolution 10K, Violence Against Women, Lanark County. Councillor Jaworski.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McDonald. So this one was a bit, caught my eye because it's not something that we see regularly in our our correspondence. So the letter, this is referring to the coroner's inquest into the 2015 triple homicide that happened in the Ottawa Valley, where 3 women were murdered by an intimate partner of theirs, west of Ottawa. And I didn't realize that, that I guess I hadn't followed that there was an inquest, a coroner's inquest. And I also didn't realize that there's a jury of 5 community members who are involved in that inquest. And so this inquest was done in June. It was actually a 3-week inquest. And so the jurors were actually tasked with recommending ways of, how to better support and protect survivors of domestic violence. And their main recommendation was that declaring that intimate partner violence is an epidemic in Ontario. And I was just shocked by that. That was, it was probably language I had not seen referring to this kind of violence. And in Lanark's letter, they refer, they're saying they want to have this resolution, and they refer back to their own local statistics that in Lanark County, they had 4,800 crisis calls and services to 527 women and children in their local community. So what I would like, if council would be supportive, is I would like to try and get similar data for our own community from the OPP. And perhaps we could do a similar resolution with our own data, which, it seems through that inquest, it was quite exhaustive, that there is an issue of intimate partner violence in rural communities. And so I think the first step is to have a bit more education on the topic, and that would be by getting this data and having this resolution. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jaworski. I believe the clerk has something to add.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I do have the OPP scheduled to attend our next meeting as a delegation, so your request is quite timely. I can reach out to them and see if they can provide that information.
Okay, great. So, we'll hope they can get that information drawn up quickly. I believe they have a pretty reactive database that they can draw from, so please do that. And then I will then move to resolve the consent agenda. So moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry accepts the consent agenda. All those in favor? Oh my goodness, I forgot the words. Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We will now be moving into closed session. We will come out without direction following that. And, yeah. So moved by Sam McDonnell, seconded by Stephanie Jaworski. Be it resolved that the council convene to the closed session at 8:53 PM to discuss the following items under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, SO 2001. 2, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being discussed is C, acquisition or disposition of land, specifically potential acquisition, and F, subject or advice subject to solicitor-client privilege, specifically legal advice. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. right, welcome back to our council meeting of February 6, 2023. We have just opened from closed session, and I'm looking to a bylaw to adopt and confirm and ratify matters dealt with in resolution. So moved by Trevor Bougie, seconded by Martin Lang. Be it resolved that bylaw 15, 2023, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council the 6th day of February, 2023. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Moved by Martin Lang, seconded by Sam McDonnell. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourn to the call of the chair at, oh no, I don't have a time. 10:24 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Thank you very much and have a good evening, everyone.